It's Cardboard Time, episode number 70, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke. On today's episode, we have reviews of HerStory, my thoughts of playing through Monopoly by its actual rule set, and a interview with Carla Kopp of Weird Giraffe Games. So welcome everybody. Just a couple of announcements. I am attending Con on the Cob in a couple of weeks, so make sure that you come and say hi. If you are in the Northeast Ohio area, it is an opportunity to come see me play some board games, that kind of thing. I'll be wandering around that Saturday. So Con on the Cob's a little bit weird. It's a very interesting convention, but I happen to like it, and I figured it was worth going at least for one day just to check it out and go to the auction, see what I can sell, and maybe see what I can pick up. We'll see. The Shelf of Shame. It is at 153. No movement at all. 4 games acquired that I did purchase at Gots A Lot of Games. The first one was Obsession. I have already played this game on BGA quite a few times. I absolutely love it. It is a wonderful, wonderful game. The theme is great. I will do a full review of it once I get everything played, including the expansion content, but I don't want to talk about it just on its own right now. Motor City is another one that I picked up. That is a roll and write by the same people who did Three Sisters, as well as Fleet, the dice game. I love those two, so I had to check out Motor City. Delicious was a game that Allie took a look at, and she really liked the looks of it, so I picked that one up. And Potato Man was one that Eric kind of talked us into, trick-taking game with a few twists. Not that you haven't heard a bunch about trick-taking games with a bunch of twists on this channel already this year, but it was one that he did enough convincing that I needed to take a look at it. And I just like the theme. I mean, who doesn't like a game called Potato Man? It's at least interesting. It was cheap enough that I figured I might as well pick it up and give it a shot. So 3 games played off the Shelf of Shame. The first being HerStory, and I will talk about that today. I played that with Jordan, as well as Overboss Duel and Sagrada Artisans. Overboss Duel, I do want some more plays. The first play didn't necessarily go the way that I wanted it to as far as being smooth. We got the rule set about 3/4 of the way through the game. I think we're much more poised to play a better game of it now. It's not a super long game, but it was at the end of the night, and we really needed to kind of finish up. So I do want a couple more plays of that before I talk about it and give my final thoughts on it. Sagrada Artisans, I do want to finish that campaign before the discussion, but my early thoughts, I do really like the color vision accessibility on this. I did have a couple of small gripes when it came to the production of it, which I will talk about in my full review. However, it is incredibly nice to be able to play a game of Sagrada again. I have not been able to play Sagrada without major complications, and I haven't been able to pick it up because I haven't really modified my copy at all. And this did the work for me. So I was able to access this pretty much ready to go as soon as I opened it, with a little bit of help from Jordan, a couple of minor flubs, but nothing that wasn't corrected immediately. It was great playing that game again. Nice twists already coming from the second game in the campaign, and we have 8 more games to go. So we got through the first 2. We want to play 4 more rounds of 2 campaign rounds each before we get to the end. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's coming up from it. And again, I will discuss it once the campaign is completely finished and give you my thoughts. So let's get into the review content of the show. The first being HerStory. Now, this is from 2022, from 2 to 5 players, 30 to 60 minutes, designed by Nick Bentley, Emerson Matsucci, and Danielle Reynolds, art by Eunice Adey and Christina Aguirre, and published by Underdog Games. In HerStory, you are an acclaimed author writing a book to tell the stories of remarkable women of history. Players take turns doing research, drafting chapters, and completing them for points and possibly for research symbols or special powers. The game ends when a player has written 8 chapters, and the player with the highest scoring book wins. The game is a light strategy game featuring engine building and set collection. You do research by collecting research tokens, and by doing the right research, you can complete chapters about different historical women for points. Completed chapters grant abilities that make you a better writer and allow you to score even more points as the game progresses. You can set yourself for big point windfalls with the right combination of powers. The game comes with 120 oversized linen finish cards with beautiful illustrations of the featured historical figures on the fronts and stories about their lives on the backs. So this is one that piqued my interest a little bit. I think it was earlier this year I saw a couple of people talking about it. Not a huge amount of hype on this game, but I did see it. I did get very curious about it, and when Amazon had their big sale, normally I'm not buying board games on there, but I did pick this one up on Amazon when it was on deep discount. It was about $15. And again, I wanted to play it for a while, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and check it out. This has obvious comparisons to Splendor. If you talk to anybody about this game, they will likely compare it to Splendor. Mechanics are very similar. Yes and no. It's a little bit more complex, and this is Splendor with a different skin on it. The same ways that they're very similar, you're collecting resources to fill cards or orders. You know, that the core gameplay of that is going to be the same, as well as using those cards for additional permanent resources in some cases and or points. The ways that it's a little bit different, not every single card is going to give you a permanent resource. Some cards are actually going to give you additional scoring conditions or one-time bonuses, so that's a little bit different. The game end is triggered through the amount of cards that's collected, not points, and additional bonus points come through exact resources used to fulfill the cards. So if you're able to go and provide the right research symbols, you're able to get a 3-point bonus, which does have a little bit of an effect on the end of the game. So it was a little bit different. There's definitely comparisons to be had there, but it's not straight up Splendor with a different skin on it. This game had great quality components, first and foremost. Chunky pushpin scoring trackers, neoprene board, quality linen finish cards, your high quality draw bag with a round bottom, and thick resource tiles. Everything was top notch, in my opinion. Really, really good resources and really good components. The theme on here, each card has the story of each woman it highlights and a little fun fact about them, which was great. At the end of the game, you collect all your cards up, you turn over your player reference, and that makes your book cover. So you've made a book by the end of the game, and then you're going to share your favorite figure, which is a fun little activity at the end of the game to kind of wind down and get a little bit of extra learning in. I will say that there are elements of the theme that integrate. Again, like in the description, it said you have your completed chapters, which will make you a better writer and that kind of thing. I didn't necessarily feel that the theme was integral to the gameplay. It felt like the same mechanics could be used for a number of different order fulfillment themes, but it was more appealing to me than the standard spice trading. So I like to see different themes. I'm not going to dunk on it and say, well, the theme wasn't necessary. It was nice. It was nice to have on there, and it was a way of being able to convey that information in a fun manner. I did see a lot of comments online about this game that were complaining about the card market being stagnant. We really didn't see that much in our play. I felt that the library card that you could use twice per game, that you could use to refresh the research market, kept the game flowing pretty well. I could see this happening at a higher player count. So maybe having the ability to choose between refreshing the card market or the research market with the library card would be helpful and might be a little house rule that you decide to implement. I was also a little bit disappointed that the QR code that used to lead to bonus materials apparently doesn't anymore. It just leads to how to play. Apparently, there used to be posters of each woman that you could download and take a look at what they did, fun facts, that kind of thing. This was great in that it was extremely easy to teach, so I could probably teach this to anybody in about 5 to 7 minutes. Very quick to get to the table, and it's not going to overstay its welcome. I would say the time is pretty accurate. The 4-player count is probably going to go upwards towards that 60-minute mark, but 2 players, you can go back and forth really easily and get a game of this played in about 30 minutes once you know what you're doing. This was also almost completely color vision friendly, which was great for me. I just would not want to play with the pink and blue player colors simultaneously. They were a little bit too similar for me, but this could be very easily modified if needed. You could put a little shape on there, put a little shape on your board, and you would have something that was a little bit more accessible if you needed it. It was just the score trackers that were really an issue with this for me. Everything else was very, very well done and very friendly for that. I would also love to see some expansion content for this game. I don't know with the popularity of the game if you're going to wind up seeing some expansion content, but personally, I would love to see it. I would really think you would just have to add cards and basically balance them out, and you would be pretty good, especially board gaming related. There's a ton of great women in the board gaming field, and it would be great to be able to bring them into the game like this and to be able to teach people like this. I think that would be extremely fun. So for my final thoughts, there's a couple of categories I want to talk to with this game. So if you're a gamer that's just looking at mechanics, you're probably not going to find enough here that's going to keep your interest. That you won't find in a Splendor or a Century Spice Road or the like. It is similar to those, and I would say mechanically, it's not doing a huge amount different or enough that's probably going to keep your interest to the point that you would need to keep this in your collection. If you are a family that's looking for a great educational tool, or maybe more towards that casual gamer level that wants something that they can also bring history in, I feel like this game fits that bill perfectly. I personally love the theming, and overall the subject matter is what is going to keep it on my shelf. This is 100% a theme first game for me because, again, Splendor, Century Spice Road, I have games that kind of scratch that itch that this already does, but it's just different enough combined with a theme that it's going to stay on my shelf. So I'm going to bring this one with me on my winter break and play it together with my mom. Looking forward to sharing it with her, and that is HerStory. And speaking of my parents, I got a chance to play Monopoly with my parents by the actual rules. Now, this is something that I had talked about doing at the beginning of the year. This was a goal of mine. I wanted to play Monopoly by the actual rules, and it's something that I have been talking about for a little while now, but it was really a big goal for this year to get it done, and I finally did. This was the AC/DC version that my mom got for my dad's birthday. It doesn't do anything new that Monopoly already does. It's just a reskin. They sell it like it kind of does, like, oh, these new AC/DC features and that. It's just reskin stuff. It's still chance, it's still community chest, it's still taxes. It's the same thing. So we used to play this a lot when I was a kid, and everybody plays with house rules when it comes to Monopoly, and we got certain things wrong with the rules. And there's three big things that we didn't do when we played Monopoly. The first one is get money to go into free parking. So anytime we had to pay money to the bank from chance or community chest or taxes, we would put it in free parking. We would also put an additional $500 in there, which I have found is the worst thing that you could have done. It's exciting when somebody lands on it, right? It's this exciting thing that you're going to get this big windfall of money, and it's awesome, and it's exciting, and that's it. And it keeps the game going on too long. But we're going to talk about that in a minute. You can still collect rent in jail as well as participate in buying, selling, trading activities. That was one thing that we also got wrong because we always used to think you can't collect rent in jail. You can't go and do anything trade-wise while you're in jail because you're in jail kind of thing. Official rules say that you can. So we did play with those official rules. And then finally, auctioning off properties that weren't purchased is something that you have to do in the official rules. We never used to do that. If you didn't want to buy the property, it would just sit there. Here's the results, and here's what I found, which was very, very interesting. The economy was a lot tighter due to the extra money that wasn't injected through those chance and community chest cards and taxes, which made the game that much more fun because it wasn't going to drag on that much. If you're putting all sorts of extra money potential into the economy, that game is just going to drag and drag and drag and drag once somebody hits that free parking, because now all of a sudden they've got money to do a whole bunch of other things. You would think that would be the opposite because then they'd go on a buying spree and they would have a whole bunch of leverage, but it does not work that way. Jail could actually be a safe space for players that were running low on cash in the late game. So you can sit in jail, you can still collect rent. So if you're running low on rent, you're not passing over those rent spaces until your third turn, where you'd have to pay the low sum of $50. But it could get you out of a jam where you wouldn't have to risk landing on those high rent properties all the time. It gives you a little bit of a break, which I thought was pretty interesting. The third thing was that properties and money moved much quicker because somebody pretty much had to buy the property, and that was often at a discount from what the sale price was. That said, there was also an added component of being able to strategically force someone who really wanted a property to complete a set, or to keep a player from having one to basically leverage over them later to say, if you want this, you're going to pay me a lot more money than I paid for it. So it was really an interesting dynamic that this brought. And the game did not go for nearly as long as it used to by playing with house rules. I remember we'd go for 10, 12 hours. We'd have a whole bunch of meat and cheese. We'd have lunch. We'd have dinner. All sorts of stuff because it was an all-day affair. This, we didn't necessarily finish, but we would have been done in about 2.5 hours, which is still long, but it's not all day. It's not your Twilight Imperium length game. It's much. So my overall thoughts by playing this is still not my favorite game in the world due to the roll and move mechanics. It just causes a little too much randomness for my tastes. That said, I do have much more respect for it with the tighter economy, which was definitely that biggest thing that improved. I enjoyed the auction. And my mom kept saying, that's not how I used to play. And I replied, that's exactly right. You never learned Monopoly from the rule set as a kid, or chances were that you didn't learn Monopoly directly from the rule set. It was handed down to you. It was something that your parents taught, that your guardians taught, that somebody in your life, a friend, taught to you, that you had this other set of house rules that passed down from generation to generation at this point. I think it gets an undue bad reputation because of it. I feel like if you don't like it, but haven't played by the exact rules of the game, you do owe it to yourself to at least experience it once with a proper rule set. Check it out, see what you think. It is a much different game. Is there still frustration? Yes. I hate roll and move. I despise roll and move. I want more control over where I'm going. But that said, it was much, much better. And really, mentions of playing it for me have gone from a visceral, like, absolutely not, I'm not playing Monopoly, to I'd rather play something else, but if it really makes you happy, sure. And then maybe we could play something else afterwards. Because you're going to have time. You're not going to go in and play this 10 to 12 hour game of Monopoly. It's only going to be a couple of hours. Still too long for me, but what it is. If somebody's going to be like super happy about playing Monopoly, that's great. More power to them. That gives you the ability to kind of lead into something else that you might want to play with them a little bit later. Just saying. So that's my thoughts on Monopoly. I hope you enjoyed those. I enjoyed having the opportunity to finally play by the actual rules. I'm not going to get rid of my copies of Monopoly because this was kind of like, do I need any of these in my collection? And probably I don't need 6 copies of them. But it is a relatively more enjoyable experience now. I hope you enjoyed hearing about that. And one thing that I know that you're going to enjoy after this is an interview with Carla Kopp. So stay tuned. On today's interview segment, we have Carla Kopp, designer, developer, publisher, speaker, writer, and owner of Weird Giraffe Games. I think it'd be quicker to talk about what Carla doesn't do, but instead of doing that myself, I'll just let her tell you. Carla, welcome to Cardboard Time.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to finally have you on. I mean, this has been a long time in the making, as I often say with a lot of people, but I think we first met, I want to say it was PAX of 2021 or something like that.
But that seems like it could be true. I remember
Yeah.
at PAX, so.
Yeah, PAX Unplugged, hanging out, roaming around the convention halls and ran into each other and talked and been talking ever since, been gaming ever since, although online, not in person. We still have yet to get that in-person game.
One day, I hope.
I swear,
I'm trying
one
to do
day.
more gaming at conventions, but I feel like at Origins we did a lot of gaming, but just at tables that were adjacent to each other.
Yes, you were directly at the table next to me, and I was like, I'm going to sneak over and go over to this game. And then you were like, oh, I've got to leave. I'm like, oh, come on. And then I probably did the same thing to you. So it's just this back and forth.
Yeah. But maybe this PAX.
Yes. Let's set a goal, and hopefully we achieve it. And if we don't, then we'll just go to the next convention.
Yeah, we'll just keep on playing on BGA all the time.
Exactly. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and kind of your history in the gaming industry?
Okay, so I'm Carla. I designed my first game in about 2015, and then I brought it to Kickstarter the next year. And so that's kind of how I got into the industry. Since then, I've run about, I think, 16 crowdfunding campaigns, and I've designed maybe 80 or so total games, depending on how you define design and whatnot. I've also worked as an independent designer and developer, which has been super fun. I ran a live show for about a year during the pandemic, so I am a content creator as well, and I've written blogs. I did a brief stint as a reviewer. I also was part of the admin team for the Board Game Broads before they became the Board Game Besties, and so I ran events at conventions. I run design retreats now. I go to panels and stuff, so yeah, I basically do everything in the industry that you could do, at least like one day at a time.
Yeah, and like I said at the top, I mean, there's hardly anything that you don't do in this industry. It is completely wild. The amount of experience and breadth that you have is just absolutely incredible. One question I do have, what exactly is a weird giraffe?
Okay, so a weird giraffe is an okapi, which is the relative of the giraffe, the only relative, actually. And weird giraffe games was almost named something different. Well, because like my last name is a cop. So I wanted to do like a play on words with okapi, but it turns out that not everyone grew up on Animal Planet and knew like all the weird animals, so no one knew what that was, and so okapi games became weird giraffe games.
So you have built your company from the ground up, basically. And can you tell us a little bit more about doing that? What made you decide to do that, and what was the inspiration for founding Weird Giraffe?
So it's actually kind of funny because, well, I'm a researcher. I like go on Google and I learn things. I learned so many things via Google. And one of the things I did after I designed my first game, I was like, okay, what do I do now? And so I searched, I found Jamie Stegmaier's blog, and Jamie Stegmaier's blog is all about publishing games. So I learned exactly how to publish games. I made a giant checklist. I also found James Matthews' blog, which is also good. But what neither of them said in their blogs, or what I didn't find there, is that there was another option for what to do with games, and that is getting them signed by other companies. So by the time that I learned that that was an option, I'd already had an LLC. I was preparing for my first Kickstarter. I was like, hey, I've done the thing. I made the social media accounts. Like, I mean, I got the art done. Why not try this out and see how it goes? So yeah, it never really came to mind like, oh yeah, maybe I should just keep looking before I just completely dive in and start making a to-do list. But like that's not my personality. I dive in deep, I make giant lists and things happen. I probably should stop and think every so often, but that's not as important as having fun and
Yeah.
getting things done.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that has always stuck out to me about Weird Giraffe games is just how different they are. Could you tell us, maybe in your own words, what you think makes Weird Giraffe so different and what gives people that perception of these games that are different than what you normally see, what an Asmodee produces, what a large publisher might produce? Your games just hit different. They're built different. They all have some sort of twist on a mechanic that we've seen, but now we're seeing it in a different light. So I'd like your take on that.
Well, it is a lot of different things. It comes together between the art, all the people behind the games, and the development philosophies. And with the development, I always try to make games super friendly. There's like a baseline of friendliness for games, which is like, oh, we're not doing things for other people, but we're also not take that. And my games are way above that. Where if you are taking an action in a game, you're never attacking people, but because you do something, somebody else might get something, which is different because in most games, if somebody else gets something on your turn, it's because they took it or something like that. In studies in sorcery, you might go to an action, and because you did an action, somebody gets to get a free thing. Or in Dreams of Tomorrow, whenever you go to a location, everyone gets a certain resource, and all the player interaction is like that. Even like further to a Gift of Tulips, where you get a lot of points if you give things away. Like you can keep things for yourself, but that's not how you're going to win the game. So I really focus on that whole friendliness part of it where I play games with friends. Like I want to enjoy myself, and that's like a really big part of it for me. Like I never want to feel bad to choose between, do I do this action that hurts someone, but that's the way I win, or do I just not do that? So yeah, that's part of all of the philosophy behind the development of the games. You're with friends or your spouse or even a stranger. So let's be nice to everyone.
I think we gather around games to kind of have fun. And like you said, I want to do that with friends, or if I'm doing it with strangers, I still want to have a good time and not just be mean to people all the time in my games. Like what I grew up with, things like Monopoly and later on Munchkin, that kind of thing, where it was just notorious for, I'm going to take and take and take, and I'm going to battle and try to get everything that I can from you. Gift of Tulips was kind of my go-to example for that, and I'm glad that you brought that up because it's so different. in the fact that you are getting something by giving. And I love that mechanic. I think that that is such a brilliant, genius mechanic. It's just friendly. It feels cozy. It feels nice. And that's something that I really enjoyed.
Whenever you play one of my games, I never want you to feel like you took a step back. Like every turn you have is getting you closer to more points or completing something. Like I want you to feel good because the world out there is hard. Like let's play a game and not have the bad feelings.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And what do you have coming up, speaking of games that you're putting out?
So, I think the next Kickstarter campaign is going to be a bunch of Wicked and Wise related things. I have an expansion, I have a 2-player game called Logic and Lore, and I've recently been working on a roll and write as well called Hydras and Hordes. That one is the newest one, so the name might change. But yeah, Wicked and Wise, it came out last year, probably at this point, and it is an asymmetric team building trick taking game, which again, like the amount of weird in there, like you've heard all those other words, but have you heard them together? It's about a team of dragons and mice playing a trick taking game where the dragons are actually playing the game and the mice are manipulating the game in different ways. So after they've played Wicked and Wise, they also play other card games, and one of those is Logic and Lore, which is a logic-based 2-player game where you are asking different questions and trying to align the cosmos. One thing I really like about that game is, well, I don't know if you've played a lot of 2-player games, but I had not until the pandemic, and their 2-player games are hard, especially when you're playing them with the only person you see on a regular basis, where like you don't want ones that just attack each other, or you have to make those choices of am I going to do something terrible to win or am I just not going to win? So I tried to make Logic and Lore one of these games where like you are only helping yourself, but like there is player interaction, but only like the psychological kind, if that makes sense, because you know how close the other person is to winning. And if you see that they are super close, you might do things that are to your detriment. However, they don't know how close they are to winning. They can guess, but they don't always guess right. And you can also change the different difficulties. So I've played Logic and Lore more than any other human, probably. So whenever I play the game, I put it on super difficult for me, but I put it on easy for all like the new players. So it's a really exciting game for me because I don't have to try to fake like, oh, I'm going to do the wrong thing so you don't feel bad when I win super fast, because I'm not going to win super fast. I'm on hard difficulty.
I like that scalability, and that's something, especially in a 2-player game, I don't think we necessarily see a lot, but I like that a lot because if I'm playing with somebody who isn't necessarily into the hobby as much as I am, which is often, or if I'm playing with my girlfriend who doesn't necessarily have all those mechanics in mind and kind of gets deep into the game as much as I do, you're able to scale that for different players, and that's exciting as well. Tell us a little bit more about this roll and write. I am a huge roll and write fan myself, so I'm very intrigued by this.
Okay, Hydras and Hordes for now. So dragons and mice interact with each other, but the hydras are in the water, so they can't really team up with mice. They team up with otters instead. And if they use cards, they get wet. So that's why it's a roll and write game. Because, it's okay if dice get wet. It's fine. We don't talk about the paper. That's hand wave in a way. But anyway, so every round, 3 dice are rolled, and everyone decides to do whatever they want with them. So you can play with like 100 people if you feel like. But with the dice, there's different sections, and you choose your section based on the number. So the sections go from 1 to 12, and they're all D6. So to get to section 7 to 12, you need to add either 2 or 3 dice together. And you can do this. Like if you wanted to go to section 4 and you rolled 2 2s, well, you add them together and suddenly you have a 4 now, and then you can put the other die in that section. There's 3 dice because it's hydras, and well, historically, hydras have between 2 and 5 heads, but I think most people think that 3 is the most common. So each Hydra head might choose to do a different thing, but if they all team up together, there's a bonus. And yeah, you're just basically going through, trying to fill in sections based on what the numbers are and what each section's requirements are. Like the first section wants all the same kind of dice, and second section wants all different values, etc. And then like if you go into the extra section where you send little otters to go get gems, they will be able to modify things and add numbers where there otherwise shouldn't be. So yeah, that's where it brings in all the theme and stuff from Wicked and Wise.
I love that. That's so cool. Well, one other thing that I definitely wanted to talk to you about as far as game production goes is inclusivity. And I wanted to start with color vision and inclusivity because for me, that's a really big deal. And it's one thing that I've very much noticed about the Weird Giraffe line of games is the fact that for me, I never have an issue playing. I'm always able to play. I'm always able to dive right in. Everything is always double coded or in a format that doesn't exclude people from the table. Can you say why you design the way that you do around color vision inclusivity, what your process is for that, and why it's important?
Well, why is it important? Well, it goes to my whole development philosophy in general, where I want people to have a good time. I want them to be happy and have fun. And if you can't tell the colors apart, you're not having fun. Like, let's do the best thing we can do to focus on the fun. That's why I always have reference cards and the colorblind friendliness and all the little, like, the quick start guides. Let's just have fun. That's the goal. So let's make it as easy as possible. And when you make a game colorblind friendly, you actually make it a lot easier on everyone else, because just because you can see colors doesn't mean that the icons don't help out. Maybe somebody, if something is double coded, meaning it has both color and icon to signify what it is, just like brains work differently. Like identifying the different icon is so much faster. So again, getting to the fun as fast as possible. And who wants to even look at something and be like, oh, I messed up. It was dark blue. It wasn't black. I just ruined everything. So yeah, having everything be colorblind friendly helps out everyone. And also, I've had tons of colorblind friends where it's just like, this isn't fun. Even going to update games to make sure that they're colorblind friendly, switching out when there's blue and purple dice. Like, let's just buy other dice. And now everyone can tell what the dice are. So yeah, just making sure it's fun for everyone is a quick and easy fix. And I care about this so much that I recently have a new product out, well, soon to be, it can be pre-ordered, that I'm super excited about. It's Way Too Many Cat Meeples. So it's a bunch of cat meeples, but there's 7 different colors, and each of the different colors of cats has a different shape and different etchings on it. So if you ever have a game that's not colorblind friendly, you can just take out the meeples. Now you're all cats, but everyone can tell the difference in the colors. So I hope, well, the main thing is I wanted it to be a colorblind friendly thing, but then it was like, well, other people could just buy it for cats. And hopefully it means that like a lot of people get it, and then all the colorblind people can just like, okay, I guess I'm a cat now.
Yeah, and I mean, who wouldn't want cat meeples? I mean, honestly.
Yeah, and I did some surveys to try to find out how many meeples there should be. Right now there's 20 of each, which should cover the vast majority of games. Just switch them out. So yeah, let's be friendly with everyone, even the colorblind people. Why would you hate on them? I don't know, but yeah.
I would love to substitute cats in for like Architects of the West Kingdom, things like that. I think that would be fun. Cats just going around building stuff. That'd be cool.
Cats can do anything, obviously.
They can.
Well, except for Save the World. I had this one expansion for Way Too Many Cats where I had to shelve it because no one would understand that the NATO cats just want to achieve world peace.
There's a perception that that's not the case, and that they are quite the opposite.
Maybe that expansion will never come out because people just don't think highly enough of cats.
That's rude. That's rude. We need to change that perception.
We'll see how things turn out.
So, one other thing when it comes to inclusivity is there's a huge range of inclusivity when it comes to your products, as far as designers, your staff, people that are artists on your products. There's so much diversity there. And we absolutely love to see that, because I want to support companies that are working towards making the hobby more inclusive and bringing everybody in. And that kind of goes back to games should be fun for everyone. So I think that's going to be my main takeaway from this conversation, and the big motto is games should be fun for everyone. Can you talk about a little bit as far as diversity and your philosophy on that?
So I think I'll start off with the first time I went to a designer event. I had just designed my first game. I was so excited to go to a new town and a new convention. And I walked into the room and no one looked at me. There was only white men in the room, and I ended up going and hiding because at that point I was a introverted person, and I don't know anyone, I can't do anything, and I almost left the industry at that point. But then I walked in and I forced people to play games with me and make friends. And from then on, I kind of wanted to make sure that didn't happen with anyone else because we all have different perspectives. And when somebody that is different makes a game, you get to experience a whole different thing. One thing I like to do is to get a bunch of games from a certain culture and then play them and figure out what does this culture value because it shows in the games. You can tell when there's a foreign game because things are just different. And I think that's really important, fun. So that's one reason why I try to get a bunch of diverse people as part of the process. But on another hand, it goes to the whole fun part of it is you don't want anything that will make somebody feel bad. And if you get enough people to playtest, you can identify all those things that just because they don't offend you or you don't see them as a bad thing, it doesn't mean it's not a bad thing. So getting people that are comfortable to point out and be like, "Hey, this is racist and you should take it out." That is super important. So having people at all stages of it and just like being able to change the industry, the most important way you can tell somebody that they belong in this industry is to pay them money. Because I mean, you could be like, "Oh yeah, I want everything to be diverse and stuff, and I'll send you all my thoughts and prayers to make that happen." Or you could give them money so that they can afford to stay in the industry. And if somebody's paying you money, you get rid of all those thoughts of, "Oh, well, maybe they don't actually want me to be here. Maybe they're just being nice." But how many people just give you money to be nice?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those put your money where your mouth is and build around that. And I think it makes your product better. Again, like you said, because you have those different viewpoints and those different experiences going into the product. You've been in the hobby for a while. You've been in the industry for a while. How have you seen gaming change over the years? Has it been for the better, been for the worse, mix of both? What do you think?
I think overall it's for the better. We haven't reached the epitome of everything is grand and let's stop working towards things. But it's definitely a lot better. Like when I go to design events, like there's usually people of color and women there. It's so
It's wild,
exciting.
isn't it?
Yeah. And there's all these different things that have changed where when I first started getting into the industry and going to panels and stuff, every panel I went to, everyone was a man. But now you can go to panels where there's all ladies and non-binary people not talking about how they're not men. They're talking about actual topics that they're the subject matter expert on. And that is really cool. Just seeing all these different people that are visibly in the industry and making it. I wish there was more for sure. The other day, or like at Origins, I was going around and talking to all the publishers I know, and I was like, I think I've talked to like every lady publisher, and I did that today, and that shouldn't be possible. I
Hmm.
mean, there's like at least 5 of us, but it'd be better if it was a higher percentage on all the different fronts.
It would be better if it was actually representative of the actual population. you know,
Whoa, that's going pretty far. But
I
true.
know. It's a goal. It's a goal. Maybe someday we'll get there, but at least let's try to shoot for a little bit better.
Exactly. Just every day a little bit better, doing all the different things you can because like there's plenty that can be done. I remember a couple years ago that there was an article that came out. It was comparing the number of sheep on game covers to women.
Hmm.
And there was more sheep on the game covers than the ladies. And that was really sad. I'm not sure that that's changed, but I know that it definitely made people think about it. And I know after I read that, I was like, oh, I am going to actually start putting people on covers. And, well, they're definitely not all going to be white men. Um, so every step of the way counts because you want anyone that walks into a convention or board game store to be able to just look around and find a cover of a game that has somebody that looks like them and to be able to play a character that looks like them instead of, oh, now I have the choice. I can play one of four white dudes. Fantastic. That's my favorite choice I've ever made. Gosh, it reminds me of Seafall. Well, that broke my heart.
Oh,
I
yeah,
won't give it away, but we all
yeah.
chose our favorites. And
Mhm.
then, yes, sadness.
Yeah, and I think we'll be doing a little bit better when we're at the point that if a game gets published and it's all femme presenting characters, there won't be an outrage. I think we'll be doing pretty good at that point. When Corrosion came out and there was a big backlash about that, and Corrosion is a fantastic game. It's heavy. I mean, it's a crunchy game, and there was a huge backlash about it because it's all women engineers and how dare, and that's terrible.
How
How
would that ever happen except in the US when all software engineers were ladies until the men took over for
Mhm.
some reason? When would that ever happen again?
I don't know. I don't know.
Uh,
Maybe in a board game that people are going to complain about.
uh, I mean, I really hope so. I have high hopes that the industry will get more open to different things. So, one of the things I'm really trying to get pushed forward to is cute things. Because I like cute things, but I also like heavy games.
Mhm.
And being able to make a game that is colorful and has rainbows everywhere, and people won't immediately think, oh, is this for my 6-year-old cousin? Like, no, it could be for an adult that just likes rainbows. That's fine. So I've been slowly pushing that envelope as well. And maybe one day my super heavy, super cute game will come out, but we will see.
Well, one thing about your board game designs is you can see your personality shines through in a lot of them and kind of how you're feeling at the time that you design them or develop them. Your influence is definitely there. And one thing that we were having a conversation about at Origins, which was I need to sidebar about this, and you warned me about you going off track, but I do the same thing. So that's what we do here. We had a fantastic conversation, and I think it was 45 minutes into our scheduled conversation. You said, "Are we actually going to talk about like board games that I've got coming out, or are we just going to sit here and chat?" And I'm like, "I'm enjoying this. I think this is great." Because I got some insight into you as a person, and I got some insight about how you operate and that impact that you have on your games. And seeing inside of them made more sense to me after I kind of analyzed it. Oh, that makes way more sense. One example I think is the rules to Motley, I want to say. And there's a tie condition that you're just like, share the win. And if you don't want to share the win, then do this really stupid tiebreaker kind of thing. Because there's this obsession with winning, and it's like, well, we're here to have fun and just hang out and play games. And if you really care about winning this much, I'm going to make you work for it.
Yeah, so there's a longer story with that too, where so I have another company, Galactic Raptor Games, where with that company, it's run by the person that runs Letterman Games, and when we were developing Animal Kingdoms, for tiebreakers, I'm just like, share the win, easy, I'm playing with friends, whatever. and they were like, oh, we have to have 3 tiebreakers or else it's not a game. And it's like, what? Like, okay, I've played this game a lot, and one, I've never had a tie, but we need 3 tiebreakers? But why? This is just extra work, extra rules, extra stuff because Americans have to win
Hmm.
between like all their friends. So that whole experience of we have to have all the tiebreakers and then seeing Arboretum, where the tiebreaker in that is, oh, if you're tied, you have to go plant a tree and then 10 years later see whichever one is taller, then you win. It was just like, okay, yeah, I am just going to be ridiculous. It's fine. Like in Studies in Sorcery, if you tie, you have to do a werewolf howling contest, and everyone, including the neighbors that hear, have to vote on it. Because if you care that much, we're gonna make you care. You're gonna have to show it
Hmm.
by doing a werewolf impression. And hopefully that'll be more fun instead of just forcing somebody to lose. Do
Yeah.
you like that? Do you like making sure that somebody else feels bad for losing? Well, they got to hear you howl, so we all won in that one.
Well, you were all equally good during this game that we played. So can you, hey, we did great. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, like it's actually been intense with some of my playtest sessions where like I will playtest a game and like I will like have calculated scores or whatever, and other people like need to know if they won, and they won't give me feedback, and I'll be like, hey, like the points aren't, it's not a balanced game yet, we're playtesting. And they're like, no, I need to know if I won this game, and then I will tell you whether I liked it or not, because it depends on whether I won or not. And it's like,
God.
it's
It should
telling you
not.
it's fine,
It should not.
just enjoy it. We all won because you're helping me playtest.
Except
But
I'm the true winner because I got feedback on my game, but you also won because you got to play this. So
yeah, you got to like share your feelings. And how often does somebody ask for you to honestly share your feelings? That's rare.
So, one question that wasn't on the prepared questions I sent to you, but kind of getting into that playtesting mode of things. The importance of playtesting, obviously, we've talked about it on this show for people who listen on a regular basis. But you're in the unpub, you're in, any sort of break my game or development space that is available, constantly working and constantly playtesting stuff. I want to hear your thoughts about the importance of these events and playtesting and kind of building up that community.
Well, I probably playtest my games far more than they actually need to be playtested, just because I want like everything to be great. But also, each person that playtests, they can give a different opinion, and we all have different thoughts and backgrounds and things like that. And if you can identify all those different things, like you can make sure that nobody has a terrible experience with your game. For instance, I always try to playtest games with my father-in-law because he will do things nobody else has ever done. And one of the games he play tested, Stellar Leap, he ended up not being able to do anything, just completely out of it. And I was like, why did you do that? And he's like, well, just to see what would happen. So getting all those different perspectives, just because you might not do it and I might not do it because it doesn't make any sense, doesn't mean that somebody along the way, this is their first game, and they're like, hey, I think I'm going to do something clever. And then they do it, and then they're like, oh, I have effed myself over for the entire game, and now I just have to sit here for an hour. Those people aren't going to come back to the play other games. So yeah, getting all the different perspectives and just making sure that people feel heard. Just if you can make the playtesting experience a safe enough space, they will tell you all the things and give you ideas and whatnot. I've gotten plenty of expansion ideas and other things, and just made friends at the playtesting events. So yeah, I definitely recommend them. Even if you're not a designer, just go to them and you can give feedback because you are a human and you've played games before. And even if you haven't, you have a perspective and you can read words probably. And it'll be super helpful for the designer to just see the differences in both of your backgrounds, and maybe you pointed out something that they tried that and it didn't work. But whatever, you don't know the entire history of it. It's still really good. Maybe they'll revisit it, or maybe you'll give them an idea for 10 expansions, or maybe you'll just solidify the fact that they like a certain thing a certain way. That's perfectly a valid play test. Like if I go in and I'm like, okay, is this game done? I need people to play it and have fun and not find issues. And that's a great situation to be in. But I can't do it on my own, obviously. If I did, I would just be making a solo game, and that would only be for me because that's
Exactly.
fine, but it won't appeal to greater audiences.
Yeah. So, folks, go playtest. Go find your events. Go playtest. It's awesome. And you're doing a huge service to not only the person that you're playtesting their games, but also yourself, because you get to play cool stuff before it comes out. And who doesn't love that? You did mention Galactic Raptor. What are some of your other side ventures outside of Weird Giraffe?
So I also have Quirky Bird Games, which has Beth and Angel from Beth and Angel Make Games. They make it really easy, where we make RPGs together, and they are normally like super uplifting. Well, just like Weird Draft Games. Like I want people to be happy and have fun, and that goes with Quirky Bird as well. And it's just RPGs instead of board or card games. I think one of the main things about the pandemic that happened was that I realized like mental health was super important. And one of the ways that I like try to like make myself happier or get through things is to make like games that should help you be able to do the same thing. For example, like the first RPG I wrote for Quirky Bird Games was called Loving Accountability, where it gives you like these tools to be able to like tell other people that you love them in like whatever love language that they like. And it makes it really easy because, well, I'm also autistic. So I don't always think of the things that should happen in relationships, whether that's with my spouse or my friends or family or whatever. So with this game, you roll some dice, you draw a card, and it tells you, oh, go find this person and use this love language in some sort of way. And then you show that you actually care. Where someone, when they meet me, they might think, oh, yeah, her face doesn't show emotions. She must hate the world. Where it's like, no, that's not actually the case. I'm just bad with my face, I
Hmm.
guess. Whether that's, well, I think it's a cross between being a Midwestern thing plus autistic. It's just like my face is not going to show the emotions because it just don't. Like, it's not you, it me, and it's fine.
It's
It's
okay.
fine. I can show emotions in other ways, mainly through gaming and designing and stuff like that. But yeah, so together we write all these different RPGs that let you either journal or express yourself in different ways when you might not be able to or might not just know how. Even if you are like neurotypical person, so you have no problems with emotions, maybe you were just not taught them. So use this game, make some habits, and eventually you might not need the game. Or you can just keep using it because it's easy. It's much easier than thinking, oh, I should tell somebody I appreciate them, but then who and how? And the games just answer all those questions for you so you can make it easier to enjoy yourself and have others enjoy being around you.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, somebody might use that to learn those behaviors and kind of be a little bit more conscious of some of their behaviors and some of their actions and that kind of thing, which I think is so cool. Also, Beth and Angel are a delight. Love interacting with them. They're wonderful people. So I had them on quite a few episodes ago, but great time, great people.
Mhm. We also have a Patreon together. So if you want to support us making games to help people with their mental health and things like that, in like weird, quirky games that are more often themed to birds than anything else, because I don't know, we all went a little pandemic crazy this time on. All of us love birds for some reason now. But yeah, if you want to support weird little RPGs, for instance, I have one all about ducks because ducks are cool, okay? Like, I did
Mhm.
not rant at all about birds so far, but birds in general, each type of bird has their own word for a group of them. Like, there's a murder of crows or a flock of geese or whatever. There's weird words. But ducks have different words depending on what the group of ducks is doing. Like a paddling is when they're swimming together, but there's all these different words for them. So it is a way to pretend you're a duck, but also think about your different friend groups in different ways because you have your work friends and your home friends and your actual family and the people you go flying with and all of those sorts of things. So yeah, be a duck, appreciate everything around you, all the people, and maybe support the Patreon. Whatever. You do you.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, outside of gaming, I think your work is very fascinating. This is something that I did not know about you until we sat down. What do you do for work outside of gaming?
I do more gaming. I get hired to design games and stuff now. At this point in my life, I am publishing games, I am designing games to be signed by other people. Oh, and I am contracted to make games, which is one of my favorite parts of things because a company will contact me and they'll reach out and be like, "Hey, I need a party game that does this," or whatever. And then I get to think, who would be the best and most exciting person to make this game with? And I reach out to them and I'm like, hey, do you want to get paid to have fun and make a game? And so far, everyone has said yes. Like, for one of them, it was a party game, it was a party trivia game. And I don't know why somebody was asking me to make this because those aren't my things. But then I thought about who would be the best person to make a party game with. And obviously, there was Eric Slauson, who made Monstrosity and Tattoo Stories, and probably at this point, like so many other cool party games. And it was a blast. He was also fantastic at managing the customer because sometimes I would do things which would be the worst. For instance, if you're a trivia person, you need to win with your trivia skills. That is full on. Trivia is how you win. It cannot be any sort of random thing like having a rock, paper, scissors duel at the end of the game. That is ridiculous. I feel like they almost just shut their computers and fired us, but Eric smooth the feathers because I always have to bring up birds. So not only is he great at designing party games and super fun to work with, but he can manage people like a boss.
And honestly, what work is better other than gaming than more gaming?
Exactly. Let's just do more gaming.
Let's just
It's
game all the
fun.
time. It's so much fun. Do you have any hobbies outside of gaming?
At this point, I don't really think so, other than trying to manage my own happiness and health and whatnot. I used to play a lot of video games, and now I just don't. I read occasionally, but I have a lot of different illnesses and stuff, so I have to manage that because there's definitely not enough spoons in the day. So I have to keep on track of that. And maybe one day when I'm not super depressed, I will just be able to video game again. Like, wouldn't that be cool?
Mhm.
But at this point in time, I would say the biggest hobby I have is, I don't know, biking and reading. Not that I like biking, it's just it makes sure my knees don't get destroyed
Yeah.
from all the sitting and the gaming.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things that you have to do as opposed to things that you want to do. And hopefully at least marginally acceptable. Yeah. This is okay.
Yeah, well, it's especially better now that I moved to Houston and I live in a bird sanctuary, so my biking path goes through several bodies of water, so I get to see at least 10 different birds on my bike trip every day. Cuz again, birds. Who doesn't want to see a heron and an egret every morning? It makes the exercise fine cuz it's like what sort of thing am I going to have to look up today cuz I don't actually know birds that well. I just think that they're cool. Because, I mean, who doesn't want to fly?
Exactly. It's the best superpower other than transformation. Now that I've got that all worked out, I feel like flying is definitely up there.
Hmm. I mean, you could escape quickly then.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Exactly. Just fly away. Just be like, "Yep, I'm out. I'm peacing out. I'm done."
it's better than teleportation because you don't like kill yourself, maybe. But that
Exactly.
is a topic for another day because science. How does it work?
That's truly a question. Like, you don't want to get into the whole, am I going to have to duplicate myself, and am I really that self, or which one stays behind and which one goes kind of thing. We don't need to talk about that. That's a completely separate discussion. Yeah, maybe we'll just record that and have that as like bonus content someday. So what is on your table other than what you're working on currently?
I have been playing a bit of Whirling Witchcraft because it's one of those weird games, and I always like the weird ones. Where Whirling Witchcraft, it's a game where you are trying to use up all the ingredients and explode the person next to you. And so the person to your left is giving you ingredients, and you are giving them to the person on your right. And it's an engine builder, which is weird because the input is dependent on the other players. So yeah, that one is pretty cool, and I like it. And a lot of BGA. It's
A ton of BGA.
yeah, like
Like at least 9 games on BGA that I know of.
at one time, like somebody pointed out that I had the perfect number of games, which was 42, and then I added like another person to my rotation, and so that went up. But I really like BGA because there's some parts to board game publishing that aren't the best. All the emails and management and trying to convince people to do the things that they promised you they would do. So whenever I'll go and I'll start doing emails, and once I get through a few of them, I'm like, okay, I can reward myself with a few turns of a few games, and then I go back and it just increases my productivity because I know, like, Arwen, when are you on not online? You or somebody else is going to do a few turns if I do a few emails. It's like a handshake agreement. Just keep up with your day, and in return, you can play these games.
Yeah, it's that perfect little dopamine hit that you just need. You just need that little tiny 10-minute, 15-minute session where I can go in, I can remember what I was doing, go and play this game. And not only that, but I can see what games I like and which games I really could care less about, which is great too. So I think that it's been really good for that. And not only that, but it's like $36 a year or something ridiculously low, which
Which is
I
the
will.
cost of one game, maybe.
Yeah. And I will give Asmodee and the team their credit. They could have come in and completely stripped it and made it horrible. And they just said, okay, we're just going to make this better and add more stuff and raise the rate a little bit, but nothing egregious. And I was proven wrong because I thought that it was going to go off the rails. It was going to get real expensive and go and turn into a dumpster fire, which I'm glad it hasn't.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Like, if you can always find people to play games with, even if you're just looking not for friends, but for random people, they're online. You can play a game. And it's really good for those people. Well, earlier I said that I have all these different conditions and stuff. I don't always have the energy to find a game, set it all up, do it all myself. But I can certainly go in and either go on my phone or on the computer, and it's so much easier than setting something up and cleaning it up. Or alternatively, if you don't clean things up, and I have cats, and they're going to shove it on the floor. So they will not shove BGA on the floor. So yeah, and they have tutorials and stuff. Learn a game, and if you like it a lot, buy it or go on to the next game. Whatever. Have friends, play games in whatever way that you can.
Yeah, I did. I found Obsession through that. So if anybody's saying, well, you'll never buy any games that way and it's bad for the industry, no, it's not. It's good. I've found a lot of games I've really enjoyed and I've picked up because of it. I've also found games I did not enjoy and just said, you know what? It's not for me. And somebody else can pick that up. So
Mm.
it's a beautiful thing. Nobody shoves BGA on the floor. That's going to be another takeaway. So, Carla, it's been fantastic chatting with you. How can people get a hold of you on socials?
So I am Weird Draft Games on Blue Sky, Weird Drafts on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook under my name and Weird Draft Games. And I have a Discord at weirddraftgames.com/Discord where we talk about board games and mental health mainly. So if you ever want to come talk about either of those or design, or you could see all of my different silly ideas I come up with in the middle of the night because, well, I also have narcolepsy, so add that to the list of things where I rant in the middle of the night because that's part of it.
Yeah, I'll get Discord messages at 2:30 in the morning, and it's like, oh, Carla was up. Okay. This is because you gotta do your work when you can, and you just say, this is when I'm able to get this done, and you just do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Carla, once again, it has been absolutely fantastic chatting with you, and hope to do this again soon.
Yep. I'm super excited for the next time we can do this.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us today. If you want more information about Cardboard Time, you can go to our website at cardboardtime.com. Our Instagram and Twitter is at cardboard_time. Our Blue Sky is at cardboardtime, no underscore. Any questions, suggestions, or ideas for discussion topics, please email cardboardtime@gmail.com. And as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you around the table in 2 weeks for another episode of Cardboard Time.